Okay, that should be better there. All right, that's strange. Something must have happened to the USB connection there, so I just reestablished that. Strange indeed. We'll have to check the desktop audio when we get to the listening. All right, well, I'm going to sum up what I just said very simply, students. We're taking this material from the websites ahelp.com, glshelp.com, and we're focusing on IELTS listening today. All right, students, make sure to send us an email if you have any questions, adrian@aehelp.com or admin@aehelp.com. And follow us on Instagram, IELTS_AEHelp, GLSHelp. And make sure, for those of you who have premium access and get all those extra lessons, to link the apps to the website, Academic IELTS Help and General IELTS Help. We'll link to these websites, ahelp.com, glshelp.com. Tomorrow, students will have speaking, and right now we'll get into some listening. All right, for this listening, again, we're on to part 3 of the listening section, a continuation from last week. For those of you who can lip read, you probably knew that from the start of the class. All right, so what we'll do is we'll listen to the audio, we'll look at the questions. This is what your paper-based exam would look like. The computer-based is similar. You just click your answers, of course, on the computer screen while you're listening. Okay, I'm going to put on my headset and then we'll go over to the website and start playing the audio. Please put your answers separately and we'll go through them with some strategies after. So we'll just jump right in. All right, here we go, everybody. Let me just get that back. Okay. All right, so back to the websites for the listening audio. This is, again, aehelp.com. You can access all this audio by clicking this big red button, going to your My Student account after you purchase the course for about 30 to 50 bucks US. And then you go to the lesson videos. Now, on the exams, you will always see where you can find the audio. So this is going to be CD4, track 3 for those of you who do have premium access. For those who don't worry about it, because I've got the audio for you right here. Okay, all right, let's do this. So again, listen, answer, and save your answers till the end. Share them only after you've listened. Okay, all right.
Now turn to section 3.
Please.
Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26.
All right. Match the professor with the university. One question. Edinburgh, Trinity College.
Listening, section 3. You will hear a panel discussion on the ethics of zoos. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Welcome everyone to this very special evening. Tonight's speakers are 2 distinguished scholars. Dr. Henry Gergen from the University of Edinburgh is a philosopher and animal rights advocate. Dr. Gloria Mesto from Trinity College, Dublin is an animal conservationist. Welcome to you both. The topic of tonight's discussion is the ethics of zoos. Here is the fundamental question. Is it right to house animals in zoos, or should they live freely in nature instead?
As an animal rights advocate and theorist, I have clear views on this question. To me, it is fundamentally wrong to lock up animals for human enjoyment. I believe that in many important respects, animals are persons, and should be afforded many of the rights that human beings have. Chief among these is the right to liberty and the freedom to achieve one's desired ends in life. Clearly, these rights are abrogated by imprisonment within the zoo. Moreover, in many cases, animals in zoos are treated inhumanely and are subject to confinement in extremely small spaces. While regulation of zoos may help mitigate some of these problems, I maintain that zoos are fundamentally unethical.
I certainly understand Dr. Gergen's position, and I do agree on some of his points, most notably that zoos must be held to higher standards of animal treatment than they are currently. But my colleague fails to consider an important point in favor of zoos. The conservation of species is an incredibly important endeavor, and zoos are on the front line in the battle to save hundreds of species of animals around the world. Zoos often employ some of the leading experts in the field who are best equipped to carry out this important task. It is for this reason that I believe zoos are justified. Though they may not be perfect, I believe zoos and the experts they employ play a critical role in the conservation of species and therefore are ethically permissible.
Dr. Gergen, do you have a rebuttal to that point?
Yes, certainly. While I appreciated Dr. Mester's position as a conservationist, and I do appreciate the work she and others like her do for animal welfare around the world, I must disagree with her. While zoos certainly do play a role in animal conservation, it is not because they are zoos that they play this role.
Dr. Gergen, can you clarify that point for the audience?
Of course. What I mean is this. It is not inherent in the idea of a zoo that they conserve animals. The notions are separable. You can have an animal conservation effort that is not a zoo, just as you can have a zoo that has nothing to do with conservation. So while it is true that some zoos act as animal preserves, this does not justify the existence of zoos, since we could easily separate out these animal preserves from zoos themselves.
Fair point. But such animal preserves would still have the associated problems of poor treatment and unsuitable living conditions.
Yes, but at least it would be in an effort towards a positive end. The animals would not be captive forever, and they would not be captive merely for a human audience.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30.
So here I'm thinking of that statement for those of you who were in last week's class, right? We're changing multiple choice questions to statements.
Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 27 to 30.
What about the enjoyment and education that zoos provide, especially to young people? Perhaps individuals like yourselves were inspired to become animal advocates by attending a zoo when you were a child.
That is a really interesting point. I was indeed inspired by going to a zoo when I was a child. What do you think, Dr. Gergen?
It is an interesting thought. What if the positive outcomes caused by inspiring people like us to do good in the future outweighed the harms done to zoo animals? I'm not sure. I would have to think about it more, but it's certainly an interesting question.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. In closing, I'm not sure how much progress we've made, but is it safe to say that we can all agree that zoos, at the very least, must do their best to improve the treatment of animals and the conditions in which the animals live?
I would certainly agree with that, as I'm sure my friends would also agree.
Okay, let's stop the audio.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
And always use that time, students, to check your answers while that information is fresh. The listening really is about comprehension, so active listening, imagining that you're in the zoo, imagining that you see these zoo animals, and you're thinking about the pros and cons of zoos. Okay? All right, let's go through these questions together, and then we'll get a better idea of how to answer them and how this works. So for Part 3 and Part 4 especially, the questions can sometimes come very quickly, and sometimes you have to listen for a bit before you get the answer. You have to comprehend an entire part of a discussion. Now, when you have a panel, so you have multiple speakers, and they name the speakers like Henry Gergen and Gloria Mesto, it's really important to pay attention to their names, who is who, so that you can get these questions correct. Okay? All right. This is just one question, question number 21. You have to identify both of these. So Dr. Henry Gergen, is he from the University of Edinburgh or from Trinity College, Dublin? Where is Dr. Henry Gergen from? His accent is actually from New Zealand. Hopa says, visualization really helps. I answered most of the question without notes. I agree, Hopa, that you're completely right. Just kind of imagining these people speaking, yourself at the zoo, what they're talking about is really, really a great way to figure this out. Okay? All right. So who's who? In the actual paper-based exam, you would have a question space like question 21. It would be a box like this. And then you would put 1 something and then 2 something. So it would be 1A Boca, very good. And then you would put 2 B, obviously. That's the only choice that's left for us, right? So don't get that wrong. Yeah, they're kind of just matched up straight across like that. Okay. All right. Question 22 to 24. Which 3 of the following are arguments given against zoos? So these are the negatives of zoos. And it's the first person, it's Dr. Henry Gergen, who's kind of the one that speaks more for not having zoos and having animals be allowed more freedom. So for this kind of question, students, where you have multiple choice, it's a really good idea to take some notes and just make a quick list of the comments that are made. So here, the speaker says, well, they're fundamentally wrong. So I've taken this note. Now, the reason why you take notes and not just look at the answers, A, B, C, D, E, F, is because it's really hard to pay attention to all of this while you're listening and to keep all of these in mind and then try to pick through them. So it's a little bit easier to just actually jot down notes quickly and then match it up after. Okay. So, fundamentally wrong. Do we have something here in the choices that say fundamentally wrong? The animals are treated inhumanely. Animals are persons. The conservation of species. Animals should not be in prison. Animals are human beings and should be treated equally. They are fundamentally wrong. Yeah, F. Look at that. F is this one here. Okay, so F is definitely one of the answers. All right. Animals are persons, so he figures animals are like humans. When he says animals are persons, it doesn't mean they're human. It means they're individuals with emotions, with thoughts, with a feeling of joy, pain. So animals are persons, and we can see that one here. I read through it, and of course this is now very quick when you're looking at it. So animals are persons. There we go. So B seems to be right, and it's which 3 of the following? Okay, they're treated inhumanely was another one. The animals are treated inhumanely. There we go. It looks like that one's correct as well. So we've got A. Small spaces, sure. Animals should not be in prison. Well, prison is for humans. It's a jail, so that's wrong. Okay. Conservation of species was a positive. Zoos are unethical. They're not human beings. So the correct answer is F, B, and A. Okay. The most accurate answer choices here are F, B, and A. Did everybody get that? Okay. So here's a really important tip for everyone. Again, I've given this tip multiple times, and those students who practice it all report getting some better answers. So in the listening multiple choice, because it's a multiple choice question, we have to choose multiple answers, right? So listening multiple choice, take notes. Take notes. Because it's really difficult to observe all of the choices while you are listening. It is easier to jot down the question or the answers and then match them with the choices. Okay, is everybody clear on that? It's a really important one because you're picking up or losing like 2-3 different marks often on these questions. So, okay. Coco says, thank you. I always go wrong in this one. Yeah, so listen, Coco, write down the answers as you hear them and then match them up. Oftentimes, they're paraphrased too, so it makes it even more difficult to just stare at them and catch them that way. Okay? All right? That's the easier way, everybody. Okay, so questions 25 to 27. Now, paying attention to some key phrases in the questions is really good. So here it says, in order to improve the conditions for zoo animals, zoos must be held to, and they say this quite quickly, but it's very clear. And as long as you've reviewed this question, you'll be able to catch it. Anybody know what the answer is? So what was the answer here? Anybody? Hopefully some of you caught it. The answer was zoos must be held to higher standards of animal treatment. More than 2 words, no more than 2 words, and or a number. Okay, so here it's 2 words. It's higher standards. Right now, when you give these answers in these fill in the blanks, and you have the 30 seconds at the end to review, make sure you read these. So in order to improve the conditions for zoo animals, zoos must be held to higher standards of animal treatment. Makes sense? Yes, you heard it. Good. Okay. All right. While zoos do conserve animal life, Dr. Gergen argues that this function could also be performed by animal something. Now, this is why I said listen to the speakers, who they are. We know that Dr. Gergen is from the University of Edinburgh, and he is against zoos. He's the male voice. So even though there's a long like female voice here where she's explaining how zoos or animal conserves, you have to wait for the answer, and then Dr. Gergen finally starts to say, well, this can also be performed by animal preserves. And you should always really pay attention when you hear a word repeated multiple times. The word preserves was repeated 4 times here. Okay, so often when they have these kinds of unique words that are repeated over and over and over again, there's a very good chance that that's going to be the answer to one of the questions. It's no guarantee, so be careful, but there's a very good chance. Okay, so this is another tip. When a unique term is repeated multiple times, there is a very good chance that it is one of the answers, or at least part of an answer. Okay, so here, animal preserves are those special parks and forests that are protected by humans where animals can live freely and not be disturbed by hunters or other kinds of activity like construction, for example, that can endanger their lives. So that's basically a protected natural area where animals live freely. Those are called animal preserves. Right? The word preserve means to safeguard, to keep for a longer time. So if that's a new word for you, make sure to write it down. Okay. All right. Now here we had an interesting kind of break within the question set. and then this is where it continued from. It's not often that you'll have that kind of a break where it's in the question set, but you can, depending, especially with these fill in the blanks. When there's like 4 or 5 of them, they might give you the break somewhere between the questions within the question set. So you have to kind of really pay attention. And then when they start up again, the answer might come very, very quickly. Like in this case, it was a noun. Enjoyment and something are 2 key positive attributes of zoos. What was the other one? Anybody? Yeah, I hope the article like the or a or an, Carolina's absolutely right. It does count as a word. So you have to be careful. It is, because it is a word, right? You have to be careful with that. Okay. So anybody, what was the answer here? And now you can also kind of guess. So one very powerful tool, everybody, that you should not forget for your IELTS exam is your logic, right? Enjoyment and entertainment, no, Alexander, it wasn't entertainment. Entertainment is enjoyment, right? So if you're thinking, oh, maybe it's entertainment, again, just use a bit of critical thinking here. Entertainment and enjoyment are kind of the same. They're equal. So you wouldn't have the same word, just synonyms here. It would be something different. So that's right, Alexander. Education, right? And again, visualize, right? Like if you're at a zoo, you have fun, but you also learn, right? You learn about animals, their habitats, their behaviors. So zoos are highly, highly educational. That's why schools will often go on field trips to zoos, right? So enter enjoyment and education. Now, before I even had that word, I realized that this should be a noun. This is not given, of course, in the IELTS, but you figure that out because the first word is a noun. Okay. Nadim Gaming, experience would be education. So education is the correct word here. All right, question 28 to 30. Choose the correct letters A, B, or C. According to Dr. Gergen, does the value of inspiring young people outweigh the negative aspects of zoos? Now here, when you're focusing on a question like this, you have to think about the statement that could be heard. Okay, so I think the value of is probably what he'll say or something like that. So just kind of predicting the type of language or statement that could be used. And MotoTube says he's unsure. Yeah, that was the correct answer. So when we listened for that, you're very much correct, AW MotoTube. He says, oh, I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that. Okay. And if you know that expression, I'll have to think about that, then you're 100% sure that I'll have to think about that. Then you know that he's unsure, because having to think about it means uncertainty. Okay, what is the interesting question? And again, we'll probably hear something like, that is an interesting question. And we did hear him say that. It was like, I don't know whether or not the educational value outweighs the negatives. That's an interesting question. So, whether zoos are ethical? No. Whether the inspirational value of zoos outweigh their negative aspects? That was the one. But we'll read C just in case. Whether enjoyment and inspiration negate the importance of zoos? No. So B. And if you're not sure of what a word like negate means, don't just choose that answer because you're like, oh, that looks like it could be the right one. No, make sure you choose the one that you think is the right one. Okay. All right. What do the guests agree on? Zoo conditions need to be improved. That was very clear. It was at the end. Often for those first and last questions, they'll give you one that's a little bit easier. And so here for number 30, it was definitely A, zoo conditions need to be improved. That was the final comment by all of the speakers. Okay. Now, students, if you're aiming for those higher band scores like 7, 8, then you have to think about getting, I'd say like 7 correct on part 3, part 4. Okay, you can't lose too many marks. And Hope and Hope says, besides, the most logical choice. Yeah, it is the most logical choice. And again, logic is your friend in the listening. So if you ever miss questions, students, really rely on logic. Okay, so if you ever miss an answer, rely on logic to figure it out. Okay. Okay, students, add up your scores for part 3 and let's go on to part 4. Again, all of these materials are coming from our website. So for general IELTS students, you have the same listening because listening is the same in general IELTS. So when you join our premium IELTS course by clicking the big red button at gieltshelp.com, then you get access to the same listening because the listening examinees, the students or candidates, they sit in the exam with the academic ones in most places. Okay. Now we'll go back to the website here and we'll play the audio for part 4. Keep in mind, everybody, part 4 is a little bit different from 1, 2, and 3 because there's no break. They just play the whole audio start to finish. So you have to be even more focused and really visualizing and picking up the information. So here it's about turtles. So imagine that you are a turtle or you're riding a turtle or you're swimming with turtles. Okay, but be the turtle. Here we go, everybody. Listen again, save your answers till the end.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31
Bakar,
to
you have
40.
paper during the computer-based exam to take notes. Okay. All right. Read through as quickly as you can.
Listening section 4. You will hear a professor discussing the migration of loggerhead turtles. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
It's late April on the South Atlantic coast of North America, and one of the most remarkable journeys in all of nature is about to begin. The loggerhead turtle, whose natural habitat is the open ocean, has to seek dry land to lay its eggs. The sandy beaches of Florida provide a perfect nesting spot, with soft sand that can be dug up by the persistent flippers of the female loggerhead. Over the course of the next 3 months, hundreds of thousands of eggs will be laid on such beaches. Many of these eggs will become the victim of predators, but many will survive to hatching, which occurs 2 months after being laid. Hatching marks the beginning of an incredible journey for the loggerhead turtle. Almost immediately upon hatching, the young turtles, known as hatchlings at this point, head for the open ocean. The ocean, while full of its own dangers and predators, provides a relative safe haven for the hatchlings away from many of the predators that live near the shoreline. These young turtles embark upon a journey that will take them upwards of 13,000 kilometers around the North Atlantic. Many animals make large and incredible journeys, but what makes the loggerhead turtle's migration so notable is the speed at which the animal moves. While many bird species make similar journeys, they move at velocities much faster than the loggerhead turtle. This slow-moving beast travels at the remarkably sluggish pace of only 3/4 of a kilometre per hour. This means it will take the turtle a minimum of 17,000 hours to complete its migratory journey, not even taking into account stops for feeding and sleep. To put that number in perspective, 17,000 hours is approximately 2 years of non-stop swimming. That the loggerhead turtle makes this journey alone makes it all the more impressive. From birth to adolescence to adulthood, the loggerhead turtle is a solitary traveller. But how does it know where to go? Doesn't it need a parent to help it know the route? This is where the loggerhead becomes even more fascinating. Recent research tells us the loggerhead uses the magnetic field of the Earth to determine its migration route. Because the Earth's magnetic field differs in each location around the world, the loggerhead turtle can use it as a kind of innate roadmap, illuminating the way to where they need to be. One example of this is the behaviour they exhibit when they encounter the particular magnetic field off the coast of Portugal. Instead of continuing north, towards the cold waters of northern Europe, they sense the magnetic field and turn around, instead heading for the warmer waters of northwestern Africa. And it is not just that the loggerhead turtle has a sort of innate compass. They are able to determine, with surprising precision, their latitude and longitude. They know exactly when to zig and zag to optimize their migratory pattern. Even with their incredible ability to know where they are and where they need to be, the survival rate of migratory loggerhead turtles is incredibly low. In fact, only about 1 in 4,000 hatchlings makes it back to the beach in eastern Florida to mate and lay its eggs. However, that any make it at all is an incredible achievement and one of the great natural wonders of navigation.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, students, and again, check those answers. And then for everybody who's taking the paper-based exam, you've got 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. For those of you doing the computer-based exam, you have about 5 minutes to review your answers. So, Kajal, go ahead and ask your question. If I can't get to it, just send me an email on that. All right, so again, all of that material and that listening with 6 listening exams comes from your website at aehelp.com, and you can sign up for the premium version by clicking the big red button here. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access, by the way. I don't think you heard that because the mic was muted at the beginning. Okay, so let's go through these answers. It's a flow chart. It moves quickly. Notice how when I was reviewing, I wasn't reading all of the information. I just don't have time. So I was just kind of reading before, like sandy beaches of provide, okay? Has fewer something. The turtles embark on a journey that will take them something kilometers. So I'm kind of reading the words that come just before and just after the blank, because unless you're an extremely fast reader, you cannot review part 4 before the audio starts. So you want to kind of pay attention to those key spots where the questions will be, okay? The sandy beaches of Florida, lots of you got that. Up and Up says, I thought that was kind of easier one. For some it is. For some it's quite challenging. So this was Florida, yeah. Big F. It's a name. Florida. Name of an American state. Famous state. That. Yeah, and then after hatching, the loggerhead turtle immediately heads for the ocean. The ocean is safer than the shore because it has fewer something. Ibrahim Huner says it's predators. That's correct. It is predators. Predators are animals that attack other animals for food. Predator. Like a tiger or a cat. Predator, that's right. And because it's fewer, it has to be predators. If you don't have an S, you're going to get it wrong. It's a super important S there. Okay, it's predators. The turtles embark on a journey that will take them approximately how many kilometers? Now, Ibrahim, it cannot be 30,000 because that would be like mostly around the world, right? So it's 13,000. Again, logic will help you here. 13,000, 13000. That's it. That's all you have to put, that number. Okay? And pay careful attention. 30,000 would be too long. Okay? 30,000, you could almost circumnavigate the entire Earth. So we'll take them about 13,000 kilometers around the Atlantic. Okay. While long migratory means like traveling a long distance, journeys are fairly commonplace in nature. What makes the loggerhead's journey especially notable is the extremely something pace that it travels at. Okay. Mohammed, if you write down Florida in small letters, it will be marked wrong. Yes, capitalization matters. Rasham, very good. Sluggish. Sluggish means very slow. Like the animal, the slug. If you don't know what a slug looks like, maybe one of your classmates will put an emoji of a slug into the chat. Or at least a snail. I don't think they have a slug emoji. They just have a snail emoji. Snail has a house. The slug does not. Okay. If you put slow pace, they'll give you that as well. Alexander, so slow works. Risham is like, it's kind of a slug. It's a snail. Anyway. Right? Take away its house, you've got a slug. No, don't. Poor slug. All right, the entire journey is equal to approximately something of continuous swimming with no breaks. This is such an amazing number. I believe, if I remember correctly, that's right, Abraham, 2 years of continuous swimming with no breaks. And I thought I was pretty good when I go to the swimming pool and do laps for an hour. Multiply that by 24, multiply that by 730, right? Ugh. That's a lot of swimming. All right, 2 years of non-stop swimming. Yeah, wow. Okay, again, get interested. Being interested in the topics of listening is a great way to score better. Write no more than 2 words and or a number. This is a paragraph completion. As incredible as the loggerhead turtle journey is, what makes it even more impressive is that the loggerhead is a something, and it's commonly, it's interesting because when we see these animals, these turtles, in cartoons and on movies and documentaries, we often see them in like groups. Those are probably rare situations. Hopenop says they're solitary. Solidity, in that sense, Alexander, it's the right concept but the wrong word form. It's solitary. Does anybody play the game Solitaire on the computer? It's one of the original classic computer games, the card game. Solitaire. Anybody play the game Solitaire on the computer? I bet some people knew that game before they knew what the word actually means. That card game, Solitaire, is a game that you play by yourself. It's a one-person card game, right? So that's why it's called Solitaire, because you enjoy it in solitude. Some of you might have just learned something interesting and new. You'd be like, oh, that's why it's called Solitaire. Open Up says, I've heard that before. I knew why Solitaire was called Solitaire, because you play it solitary. All right. Write down new words, students. Scientific research has, in recent years, told us that it is through a connection with the Earth's something that the turtles find their way around the ocean. Okay. Magnetic fields. That's right. And you can just do that one in a singular. Earth's magnetic field that the turtles find their way around the ocean. For example, the turtles are able to sense something off the coast of, and it's another location here, country name coming up. Anybody? What was the coast of? So it goes from Florida, swims across the Atlantic, and it is Portugal. Ibrahim, just make sure that's a big P in the real IELTS exam. Portugal. You don't want to get a wrong answer for capitalization. Names. Okay. Kajal, send me an email on that. And No, you probably can't get admission in the same year in spring. In the next year, you probably can, but depending, you have to communicate to the university for sure. Usually admissions are 6 months after you get all of your requirements. Keep that in mind, students. So for a lot of universities, this is just a segue here, Kajal's question. For a lot of universities in the US, Canada, if you want to go in September, like let's say September 2025, then your application deadlines are coming up now. They're usually in January, early February at the latest for September. And you can get a conditional acceptance where you produce your IELTS score a little bit later, but then you have to ask for that. Okay, that was a side note there. Possessing more than a simple compass, the loggerhead can innately sense it's something and something. Now, if you know the words, you'll get this for sure. Longitude and latitude. Okay, so you have the Earth, right? You have these arbitrary imaginary lines to position, okay? And the longitude are the lines that go horizontal, and the latitude are the lines that go, horizontal, and the longitude go vertical. Okay, so those, for whoever's studying geography will know that for sure. All right, so longitude and latitude. Okay, very good. A lot of you got that word, latitude. That's really good, Mariam, Anna, Ibrahim. Yeah, latitude, longitude. Some people say longitude. I say longitude, longitude, latitude. All right. Now, last question. Approximately what percentage of hatchlings make it back to the breeding ground in Florida? It's 1 in 4,000. That's what I heard. A little bit of math here, converting percentages. This is a percentage. Right? Okay, anyway, percentage. And what is this? This is 1 in 4,000. Yeah, Mohammed says that's 0.025. Abraham, we use periods, not commas. So these are percentages, right? This is, what is this called? When you have this kind of mathematical display, 1 over 4,000 is called starts with an F. For those of you studying math, it's called yeah, Bucka, that's right. They did say a very small percentage. This type of math is called a that's right, Bucka. It's a fraction. Very nice, Carolina. Fraction. Yes, these are fractions. Fractions and percentages, and you learn how to convert them in school, right? Anna says, I had a tortoise in my house when I was a child. All right. Okay, students, count up your marks. So how did you do? I think some of you were here in yesterday's class also. What were your marks? How did you do? Okay. What did you get out of 40? What did you get out of 20 if you weren't in class last week? If you weren't in class last week, try to look at that class from last week and answer those questions too, and then check your mark. And then if you're liking what you're seeing, sign up for the premium course and do all of our practice exams. You have a score calculator too on the website, and you can put your mark in. So if you were here last week, Bucka, and let's say you got a perfect score on part 1 and part 2, that means you would get 35, so you get a band 8. Okay. Minaj BC says, I got 30 on these, so 30 would be a band 7. It's pretty good. Dracula Edit says, I got 13 out of 20. Well, Dracula, let's say that you got 18 out of 20 on the first 2 parts. Just imagine that. So you got 31. Still a 7. Okay, it's not bad though. 7's great, right? Students, to sign up for that premium course, again, go to aehelp.com. Click the big red button. It's a one-time payment. You get lifetime access. Enter the code FUTURE10. Why? Because we want you to get 10% off and succeed on your future. That's coming from our most recent speaking video, by the way, that we released. That speaking video, check that out, because we have speaking tomorrow. And this is the link for that speaking video. So if you have some time after this class, take a look. It's a good one. Okay. Sultan, 38 out of 40 is really good. That's an 8.5. Okay. A band 9 is 39 or 40. Okay. Rasham, the premium link is this right here. I'm going to give you that right now. Okay, so that's the link to the premium course, and for premium students, you have 2 classes tomorrow as well. Rasham, if you sign up today, send me an email. This is my email address here, so you can get the premium class links for tomorrow's reading and Friday's speaking session. Sorry, no, I shouldn't say tomorrow. Thursday and Friday. Tomorrow we still have a YouTube class, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm living in the future. So tomorrow we have a speaking class here on YouTube. We'll use Zoom for that and do some speaking exercises. And then Thursday we'll do the premium class just on Zoom for reading, and then speaking on Friday. Okay. Risham says, I am a premium student. Risham, if you are a premium student and you didn't receive the link, first of all, make sure to whitelist emails. Students, if you're not getting emails from us, whitelist emails. Whitelist at ahelp.com in your email, and at academic English help.com. Okay. If you don't know how to do that, what you need to do is go into your email system, your settings, and then say do not send email from these guys to the junk or spam or whatever, advertising or whatever it's going to. Okay, and then you'll get those links. All right, everybody, see you tomorrow for the speaking class. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Make sure to install Zoom if you don't have it, so you can volunteer and practice your speaking for tomorrow. Thank you, Carolina, for moderating. That was fantastic. I appreciate it. Okay. Mohammed, for multiple choice, as I mentioned, listen for the statement, not the question. Focus on the question of the multiple choice and the statement that could be, or the sentence that could be, and not the answers. Okay. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Much love to all of you wherever you are in the world today, all the way from West Coast, Canada, Victoria. I'm Adrian, signing off for now. Bye, everybody.